Hello and welcome to Gettable, AFL.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We are here thanks to Google. We love our friends at Google. I'm Riley Beveridge and it is back after a long time between drinks. The wall of trades has returned. We've got updates on around 40 players, where they're at in their decision, where they might be heading during this year's trade and free agency period. And speaking of free agents, one of the biggest in the game is Tom DeConey. Kel, kick us off.
I'm here. Let's talk about TDK because TDK is on his way to STK. Of course, we know an 8-year deal on the table there from the Saints, as you revealed a couple of weeks ago, up from 7 years to 8. I think across the journey of this deal, it's obviously one of the biggest in football history, but Carlton locks in a first-round pick out of compensation. I think that 8th year might just be around the $1 million mark.
Yes.
So it might be a little bit of dip towards the end, but still, who's knocking back $1 million in your 8 years? So that one is happening, as is Oscar Allen, of course. We know he is headed off to the Brisbane Lions. Still some mystery around the actual offer and how that's structured and what it's going to look like. But it's longer term, and the belief has been throughout the whole year that it's going to be high enough to guarantee the Eagles pick number 2 as compensation. As messy a departure as you can get from a free agent and captain across this season.
What about Zach Butters? He's been telling us all year he's not going anywhere. Port Adelaide's been saying all year he's not going anywhere. Is he going anywhere?
No, I don't think so. I've been saying all year I don't think he's going anywhere either. 3-time best and fairest. He's a top 3 player in the competition for me. Dacos, Bont, Butters. The winds of change at Port Adelaide continue with Chris Davies exiting, of course, as the footy boss this week. Does that change any scenario? And does that add to the scenario for the clubs chasing him as well to put in another call? I still don't see it happening this year. I don't know why Josh Carr would give up his best player in his first year as coach, given so much other changes happen around the footy clubs. Just a reminder as well, everyone's talking about, well, why doesn't Port just put its money towards giving Zach Butters a new deal? They already did that at the start of this year. So since April, which we revealed on this show, he's had an offer for 8 years beyond this year. Beyond next year to re-sign at the footy club for 2 more years and an extra 6 beyond that, and in totality would be worth $13-14 million. So a fair offer sits on the table for him. Marcus Windhager, there's many offers for him as well.
There have been, as we revealed a couple of weeks ago, North Melbourne, Essendon, Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs, the clubs chasing him. St Kilda had the 2-year deal on the table. That's been raised to 4 years now. So we think Marcus Windhager, we said at the time, even when we revealed that interest from rival clubs, that he was loyal, and clubs thought because of that loyalty he would stay at St Kilda. That deal would take him through to free agency. I reckon he stays at the Saints now.
Still hasn't signed though. It's been there for a week or so, and it's a different money game when you know that North Melbourne has 5 years on the table, a $3.5 to $4 million on the table there. So Melbourne is chasing hard. West Coast has entered the fray, but I'm with you. I think if they can get that money to a level, then it's probably likely to stay.
Couple of veteran Pies. Tell us about Jamie Elliott.
Well, speaking of pay, I mean, he has a 2-year offer on the table from the Pies, but it's not where it clearly has to be for him to sign as yet. That's been there, and there's still a gap there from where he sees the value versus what's been on the table. We heard Craig Kelly this week as well talk about sometimes the better players, the older players have to sacrifice a little bit, and that's where it sits. They're obviously tight salary cap-wise. He has been linked to Queensland. We know that previously. Gold Coast is clearly keeping an eye on it as well. They've been looking in that small forward market. So a bit to play out there, as with Myercheck as well. 1 year on the table from the Pies, but there's murmurs of bigger deals out there as a free agent.
Will be 33 by the time next season starts, Brody Myercheck. Judd McVie, he's had the 2-year deal on the table from Melbourne for quite some time. Rival clubs have been interested in him. We've mentioned Fremantle and Adelaide on this show right throughout the year. The D's still confident that he'll sign that. Didn't indicate anything to them in his exit interview last week.
I think Adelaide's out of the picture now, so they've looked at it. There's been links there. He's got the partner link as well to South Australia. I don't think they're in the chase. I don't think there's... It's an odd one for me, this one, where this actually sits. There's been very little given away about this throughout the process, and I don't think he has the drawback to Perth as much because he's from country Western Australia.
Yes.
So, yes, the West Coast and Freo clubs are obviously going to show interest if he does want to go back there, but very interestingly placed. Not much going to be clear on that one, I think, until they get a coach in at the Demons, which is around prelim week. Hasn't
been much clear on Cal Archie's future right the way through the year as well. What do you reckon here?
I think it's more likely going at this point, isn't it? Unless he can snag another flag and be another flag hero, and that can sort of tide you over, which has happened previously with different sort of players where that all sits at the end of the season. But clearly Adelaide has interest. Brisbane has, as we'll speak about, has a lot coming in the door, we expect. So what actually has to give the other way around? He'll be 28. What do you think his trade value is? Because he is, for me, an interesting one in that he isn't a free agent. and he has to go through a trade to get a deal done.
It's almost that late first, early second sort of range, that 15 to 25 range, I think, for him. We know how good he was on grand final day. One man who's been great right throughout his career is Cal Wilkie. Clearly he's been unsettled at different times this year. He's got the contract through to 2027. He's seen as St Kilda's next captain. Hasn't stopped clubs from asking the question, though, on Cal Wilkie right the way throughout the year.
That's right.
It hasn't, no. And speaking of St Kilda, actually, what about the All-Australian Awards? He was stiff not to be an All-Australian.
Yep.
One man who deservedly was an All-Australian was Naz Wanganeen-Milera. Have a listen to this when he got his blazer.
Yeah, I sort of brought them in the room and said, I'm going to stay. And yeah, I think Ross had a few tears in his eye. I gave him a hug, and I just wanted to say, I told him I want to tell the lads before he gets out in the media, and next thing you know, 10 minutes later, I think Twomey reported it before we had the meeting, so we sort of rushed all the boys in.
Ruined it for everyone.
Well, I was actually sitting in that room back at table 26 or 27 there, and I nearly fell off my seat when I heard my name mentioned. I was kind of only half listening, so I appreciate the shout out to Naz, and that one moved pretty quickly.
It certainly did. Wade Dirksen, he is gone from the Giants. We know that. Now, a couple of clubs have registered their interest right throughout the year. Melbourne has retained its interest from 12 months ago. Now, let's not forget that Wade Dirksen requested a trade to the Demons last year, but the Giants held him to his contract. I think he's going to get put through a medical over the next couple of weeks there at the D's. I reckon that's one's going to happen. It's likely he's a delisted free agent, though. What about Zach Bailey? He's one of the biggest pre-agents on the market, isn't he?
Absolutely. So a free agent next year, so contracted till the end of 2026. What I can say today is Essendon is preparing a mega offer to try and lure Zach Bailey. My belief is it'll be 6+ years, around the $1.3 million mark across those seasons. So it would be the most lucrative contract in Bombers history, should he sign it. Now, that's a long way away from him actually signing, but this is the to and fro that happens in trade and free agency negotiations. Clearly, Brisbane has been very active on its front. Essendon too has been active on the free agency front in trying to be involved in these deals. I expect this to be more as a free agent, clearly, but obviously there's going to be some trade negotiations as well in the couple of weeks coming up. But I think this is more around getting the picture that, hey, the Bombers are interested and a number of clubs will be chasing him at that sort of rate, at that sort of value. A first-time All-Australian last week, of course, has been a star throughout his 160-game career at the Lions. Brisbane likes to get its free agency deals done early.
Yes, they do.
It has shown that to be part of its MO across recent years. We saw Cam Rayner sign in the off-season last year, heading into his free agency year as well. So they'll get him pushed. They'll be pushing to re-sign him as soon as possible. He's done that in the last couple of years as well. In his previous two contracts, he's signed in December and February. So I'm sure that'll be the same timeline that he'll be looking to kick off those talks. But clearly the Bombers are going to come hard for Zach Bailey. Put that one in the book.
I like it. It's ambitious. It's bold. It's good. Jack Silvani, free agent, told Carlton last week that he is off. Destination still unknown. Western Bulldogs, Collingwood and St Kilda, obviously the main players in there. I think now the clubs involved think he might be leaning towards the Saints and taking up that free agency offer. So 5-year deal on the table for the Saints. It's a long time for a player that's played 29 games over the last 3 years.
More than $4 million as well. So what's the gap in terms of totality? If it's a 5-year deal worth more than $4 million between 850,000, what's the gap between their offer and also the Bulldogs and Pies?
I think they're more at 4 by 6 around that mark. So it's about $1.5, $1.6 million across the life of the deal. What does it net Carlton in terms of compensation? That's the big question.
It does give them at least probably an end of first round pick. I don't think it's going to touch that first round selection. His age does come into it as well, and that's a factor when you have to go through that free agency bandings.
He's a 10-year free agent. Neil Erasmus, what does he do you reckon?
Well, I think he's more undecided, I should say, because he's had two really good options. I mean, the Bulldogs have come hard for him, been there all the way through, but he's been playing more with Fremantle recently. He's been a part of that midfield side to play again this week. He's got a 3-year deal on the table as well from Fremantle, as Nathan Schmook reported in Inside Trading last week. So I think, the holding club generally, if the player is playing and is from that state and is in that settled side, is going to be the favourite. And his ability to hold a spot in that side in the second half of this season has been important for him, but also for the Dockers. So that's where I think that one sits.
You mentioned last week on afl.com.au some interest from North Melbourne in Charlie Spargo.
Yeah, unrestricted free agent and is considering leaving the D's. So with North Melbourne interested again. So they were interested a couple of years ago in Charlie Spargo when he was under contract. He ended up staying. He's obviously had some real injury issues over the past couple of seasons, unfortunately, but out of contract at Melbourne. He would get a new deal there. He'd be able to stay there, but is a free agent, as I said, so could walk to North Melbourne as one of the clubs that is looking at him. Obviously has the family links to North Melbourne too. His father, Paul, played 81 games for the Roos, just missed out on free agency qualification there. So that is a fascinating one, as is Adam Treloar.
It certainly is.
This one is a weird one for me.
It is. So clubs have been inquiring about him because he's been out of the side and yet to be offered a contract, and out of the side purely because of injury. He came back into the team through VFL on the weekend, 35 disposals, 11 clearances, 8 tackles, showed just how good he can be. What clubs do you reckon will be watching him?
Well, I think a lot, but also the starting point for Treloar is he wants to stay.
Yes.
He wants to stay at the Western Bulldogs. He wants to get a new deal. He wants to earn that new deal. And having been All-Australian last year, would be looking to stay on at the Western Bulldogs. I don't think anyone's pushing to go to a fourth club at this point of their career. But a lot of clubs will be inquiring and having a look at it. I look at a club like Carlton. I think that if it does progress, what sort of interest will they have in a player like Treloar to add to their midfield mix? Given if he doesn't get an offer from a new deal at the Bulldogs, it's hard to say there's a huge trade bargaining chip for them to get a deal done, isn't it? It's not going to be worth too much on the trade front. Interestingly, he's at the end of his 5-year deal, of course, having come across from Collingwood, meaning this year is the last year that Collingwood is still paying
him
$300,000 of his deal. So that's a little bit of their cap eaten up and opening up heading into next year.
Certainly is. Brandon Starcevich, one of the biggest free agents coming into the year, remains that way because he is yet to sign at the Lions. You mentioned last week around West Coast and exploring that possibility of potentially not having their compensation for Oscar Allen diluted if they do bring in Brandon Starcevich. What's the latest there?
Well, this is going to go to the death, I think. It's West Coast or stay at Brisbane. He's taking every minute to make his call. Now, I think if he didn't have the concussion issues that set him back for half of this season and he was still at round finals, then you'd think you're out the door necessarily. I don't think that's as much the case because he has been putting the contract talks on hold for a best part of half a year. Now he's back into that decision mode. He's met with clubs previously. So other clubs have met with him. No Essendon, no North Melbourne's had interest. They're not a part of the picture anymore. Premiership star last year has been so interrupted this season. I think it's going to go down to the wire. I can't get a real good read on which way he's leaning because he's not giving too much away to anyone. But if he does move, it could be a case of the lion, the switch of the wardrobe.
Oh, God. That's horrible. Malcolm Moses Jr., only 4 games this year, 11 across the last 2 seasons. Our colleague up in Queensland, Michael Whiting, reporting earlier this year that Richmond and Sydney among the clubs chasing him. Brisbane had a look last year. Don't think they're interested in him again.
A few others as well. Okay. So Melbourne, Carlton, Essendon have all looked at him as well. But like you say, and like Fish reported, I think Sydney and Richmond would be the front runners.
Jesse Motlop, this is a fascinating one as well. Talks have been rumbling on around a new deal right the way through the year. But as of now, he's still uncontracted and yet to sign. So what's going on there?
Well, he has been in talks, obviously, for a new deal. Waiting, though, to make a decision over the next few weeks. So not many players wait at this point of the year without having something else up for grabs. I'm really... what would be the right word to say what I'm feeling about the Jesse Motlop?
Intrigued?
I'm intrigued.
Yes.
I'm intrigued about where this one sits. So I've got an eye on where this is going with Jesse Motlop because there's been talks. There's been offers on to deals. There's been this, there's been that. Now we're through Carlton's exits. We're through a period of their delistings. We're through a period of their players wanting out. And it's still no clarity on where he sits.
And never gave an indication as to Carlton as to what his future held at his exit interview. All right, we're about halfway through, Carlton. You take a drink of water. As you do that, let's get to our cover story now. And the cover story revolves around Zach Merrett. And the Merrett go round, Cal. Is he getting on it?
Yeah, well, clubs, again, are on the hunt for the Essendon skipper. Obviously, a big talking point. And we'll get to a couple of other Bombers as well coming up. But I mean, he has 2 years to go in his contract. This is a discussion that clearly comes up every single off-season.
Yes.
And I can understand it in the fact that Essendon loses 13 games in a row. He's 30, hasn't played a winning final. He's about to win his 6th best and fairest. He's the best player Essendon's ever had who hasn't won a premiership in their 150 years. So I understand the discussion. I just don't think there's any way Essendon could be opening the door to him going. I don't think there's a value turnaround for them. Draft picks aren't helpful for them this year. They've already got a stack of them. You push it in the future. Is that going to really mean anything or placate a supporter base if you move these players on? If you get 3 or 4 young players as a part of it, well, maybe. But I don't think anyone's going to be wanting to do that either. But clearly, Hawthorn, St Kilda came hard last season. There are a number of clubs that will chase this very, very strongly. but I just don't see us an open door.
No, I agree with you there, Cal. All right, let's get to the second half of our wall of trades. We'll start with Jacob Ware. Port Adelaide, the front runners for him now. He is a free agent courtesy of being delisted twice at the Giants across the course of his career. The Western Bulldogs also had some interest. I think Port Adelaide now well and truly in front in that race for Jacob Ware.
Lock him into Port Adelaide's backline.
Peter Laddams, another one who has some options out there. He's got a 2-year deal on the table from the Swans, but he's yet to sign it, which genuinely, as we spoke about with Jesse Motlop, generally means that he's exploring what could potentially be out there in the future. We spoke about the Merrett go-round. The ruck merry-go-round, though, is about to kick off into full swing. I reckon he's waiting to see exactly what could be out there and what other options could be out there where he could potentially be a number one ruck at a rival club. So that's an interesting one to watch, as is Charlie Curnow.
Well, he wants to leave. We know this. We've spoken about this on Gettable in July, where it was clear then that he wants to leave. He's told the world he wants to leave, and he's made it clear that he wants to go. So to one of these 3 clubs. Now, he's prepared to take a pay cut to do it to some degree. Has 4 years left on his deal. He's a hard player to do a trade, though.
Yes.
And like I said last week, I don't think the different options that have been thrown up so far have really taken into account the fact that other clubs can be involved in these mega deals and have to be involved in these mega deals. And now it's over to Charlie Curnow and his management to find the right deal that can suit all parties. And ultimately, if Carlton's going to be letting Charlie Curnow go, they're going to have to come out looking like the winner of a deal.
Yes.
So,
I think they're going to
what's that going to actually look like? Well, yeah. I mean, you've said that if you go to the draft, it's about picking up another Charlie Curnow.
Yeah.
What's the point in that? I think the point, though, is that if he moves, it's going to have to be players involved and good players.
I just think it's such a hard one. I think as well when Carlton sets its stall out so strongly, both privately and publicly through Michael Voss this week, that he's not being traded. I think it's hard to walk it back from there.
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't reckon?
I don't agree with the fact that you can walk things back and can or can't. There's 6 weeks to go until deadline day. I just think that there's so much time for this one to rattle on. And by doing it early, the one thing I would say, by doing it at this point and making the murmurs, in July, everyone's got their head around what the possibilities can look like.
Yep.
The difficult part, though, will be from a Sydney point of view, or if it's a Geelong point of view, a Gold Coast point of view, how do you raise options without that getting back to your own playing group around what that looks like? We spoke last week about the 4 untouchables at Sydney, which I think is right, but which I know is where I'd see it as well and where other clubs are looking at it. But beyond that, how do the other players feel about having names thrown up? And that's part of the discussion that you have to weigh up when you're going for one of these ultimately massive big fish.
What about Ned Reeves? He's got interest from Carlton as part of that ruck merry-go-round with Tom De Koning going to St Kilda. He's also got an offer on the table to extend longer term at Hawthorn, where he already has 1 year left on his contract. What do you reckon he does?
Yeah, I think he's been courted by Collingwood, but my read on is with the security that's going to be available from the Hawks in terms of that longer term extension beyond next year. I think that's looking more likely, particularly given that Carlton's also moved its attention to Liam Reedy here, the Fremantle ruckman, 3-gamer. He's in the sights of the Blues. I think he's headed to the Blues, to be honest. That's where I think that one's going. Not going to cost too much on trade front, but everyone needs a Darcy Fort. Everyone needs a Liam Reedy.
Yes, they do.
I think we need a song out of Everybody Needs a Darcy Fort.
That's Liam Reedy.
I can work on that.
What about Liam Ryan?
Yeah, good one. Bound for St Kilda for me. Is doing a medical there on Wednesday. A year to run on his contract at West Coast, but I think he's bound for St Kilda, where he's got a 3-year offer on the table plus a trigger there for a 4th. Interesting part for me now is how does that deal get done? What do you see the value of a Liam Ryan deal, given his age, given his experience, but also given the courting that St Kilda's done for him?
And they don't have a second round pick this year, as things stand. They've got a round 1 pick, a round 3 pick, a round 4 pick. They've got their futures, though, to work through. But what works for West Coast? Will Brodie, is he headed to Port Adelaide?
Yeah, I expect him to be in a Port Adelaide jumper next year, adding to their midfield group. Obviously, there's the link with Josh Carr, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where he was an assistant coach in that midfield group at the Dockers in his best year as well, a couple of seasons ago when he was at Port Adelaide from Fremantle, obviously, when he was from Gold Coast. I think he goes to Port Adelaide as a very cheap addition. Hasn't played AFL for a couple of years, so I don't think that there'll be too much standing in the way in terms of a deal being done there.
You've got to mention it. I'm not mentioning it.
That's Harley Reed.
Oh, no, Cal.
I know we said there's a note.
Hold on.
All right.
Hold on. I'm bringing it out. It's the Harley Reed mention jar. You've got that.
Can I play by FBOS?
Yeah, go on. Chuck some in. Every week he's got to put that in whenever he mentions Harley Reed from here on in. How we said we weren't doing it. It lasted a week.
Yeah, I'll leave it.
It lasted a week. There we go. Chuck it there.
Yeah, we have lasted a week on the Harley Reed no-go zone, but I want to just provide some detail. All right. So Harley Reed obviously re-signed last week for a couple.
Hey, you set the groundwork for this.
No, let me go here. Harley Reed re-signed for 2 more years to the end of 2028 last week.
Yeah.
So that obviously was long and drawn out. Throughout that period, we spoke about Hawthorn's interest in him. And I said they were obsessed. Now, got a little bit of clapback for that. That's okay. But some details about this interest from them I just want to share. We can say that they had an 11-year offer on the table. 11-year deal on the table for Harley Reed. Worth around that 1.7 mark, is my understanding. You times that by 10 plus next year's CBA deal. That adds up to a deal of around that 18, 19. We're pushing the $20 million mark. So
that adds up to an obsession for me.
That gets to the biggest deal ever in football history by some way. Harley Reed knew that. He saw it. He considered it. He signed with the Eagles for 2 more years, no strings attached. But it just shows how keenly, my understanding, the Hawks were to get this guy to Waverley.
All right, just wait until 2028. All right, Christian Petrarca, what does his future lie at the moment? Because he's contracted till 2029. We know he explored his options last year. Does he go again?
Well, I keep saying, I think it's time. Yeah. I think it's time for everybody that Christian Petrarca finds a new home, and I think it's good for him. I also think it's a good time for Melbourne to start afresh, get some more picks in the door, and add to what's been a really good draft hand over the past couple of seasons. So we talk about the Hawks being here in Harley, and they'd be looking at Zach Butters as well. We know that. Yeah, fair enough. I've run out of coins though. I'll come with a credit card backstage. But do they look at Harley? Do they look at? Do they look at Christian Petrarca instead? And do they look at Zach Merrett as well? So he's 30 in January.
Yeah.
So what's the value on a guy who's 30 plus 4 years to go in his contract? For me, I just think it's a good time to part ways and to freshen up for the last part of his career.
And you can see where he adds value to Hawthorn as opposed to where he might for Melbourne over the next couple of years.
Chloe, what do you think?
Clayton Oliver, I think he should probably stay now. I think his back half of the year was actually quite good. I think if the opportunity was there for him to explore his options, I think clubs would come for him given the way he bedded down this year. But obviously has that contract through till 2030. He's explored his options the last couple of years. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if he stays at Melbourne now going forward.
If it happens late.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
James Worpel, we know he's got 4-year deals on the table from both Hawthorn to stay or for Geelong to move as a free agent. He also had the 2-year deal that you reported from the Hawks, but I think that's off the table now. If he was to stay at the Hawks, it will be a 4-year deal. He won't make a decision until after Hawthorn's finals campaign ends. I think he's on his way to the Cats.
Cattery. Freeway that away.
Lock him in. Connor Budrick. The race for Connor Budrick is really heating up around the competition. He remains unsigned at Gold Coast. They've got a deal on the table for him to sign and extend his stay there. But Brisbane is among the clubs now chasing Connor Budrick. We know they're in a race to keep Brandon Starcevic. I wonder if it's a little bit of a replacement and a little bit of a contingency plan in case Starcevic leaves, looking for another lockdown small defender. The Western Bulldogs also have had interest right the way through the season. North Melbourne and Essendon had some interest last year. I think deals for Connor Budrick to leave Gold Coast now could reach 3, 4, even 5 years.
Wow.
I think that's the
5
interest.
Years.
I think that's the interest and the extent of the interest in Connor Budrick.
So
now.
let's just hang on. We're about to get to Sam Draper, but obviously Brisbane, Sam Draper, Oscar Allen over here. Can we just grab me?
Yeah.
So there's Oscar Allen Lions.
One. You're going to miss some here.
He's leaving.
Cal Archie, you got him going.
Yeah.
There's Starcevic, there's another one. You missed one there.
Line. Bailey, they'll be looking to re-sign. Who we got? Budrick, Draper, and Ridley will get to. How are they doing all this?
No idea. It's going to be fascinating to watch them unfold from the Lions. Max Heath from St Kilda. He's got interest from Melbourne, as Josh Gablich reported last week.
Yeah, I think this is all but a lock. It gets to Melbourne to work under Max Gawn. Out of contract, so I don't see too many issues in getting that trade across the line. As we've spoken about, the ruck merry-go-round, he will be a name on it. He's on the move.
Sam Draper, is he on the move?
He's on the move. He's leaving Essendon. It's been on the cards for some time, but despite their sort of increased 5-year offer, we spoke about 4 years, then 4 and a trigger, then 5. Brisbane has been the favourites, I'd say, for a little bit of time, but I think it's still neck and neck between Brisbane, where he's got the appeal of lifestyle, being the number 1 ruckman, versus Adelaide, the appeal of family and going home as well, and also the marketability that comes with being a big player,
Yes.
a big name player in South Australia versus probably having more anonymity in Queensland with respect. So, look, for me, the question now is what is the compensation going to be on Sam Draper? There's a real feel that it's going to be tight. It's going to be close to band one. It's going to be close to band one, and if it is, that's that 5, 6, 7, which will be 5, 6, 7 after the Oscar Allen pick comes through. Currently 4, 6, 5, 4, 5, 6 would be pushed back to 5, 6, 7. So how do the Bombers then get creative if it does end that way? Do they move one of those picks for an established player? Do they try and move up the board to pick one and go hard at Willem Dersmer or Cooper Duff-Tyler, who aren't going to get to their selection? So that's where the next bit of the puzzle is for me, but it's just a matter of where he decides, and expect that to be over the next week or so.
Rowan Marshall, is he going to Geelong? Contracted for another 2 years, but we know St Kilda is about to bring in Tom De Koning as a free agent.
I think it's Simmers, and is that Geelong model of simmering, and we just wait to see. But they're right in the frame, though. There's a chance if the offer's not good enough, St Kilda says, let's give it a go between him and De Koning and see if it works.
Well, you mentioned how does Brisbane get everything done? How does St Kilda get everything done? Because Leclerc is another man that is on their radar, has been right the way through the year. I don't think the interest in Jack Silvani impacts their chase for Leclerc. I still think they're right in the mix there. I think he's privately made a decision. I think he will leave the Giants at the end of the year, and also suggest that he's going to St Kilda.
Four-year offer. The other bit is Giants are stacked up in terms of their list. I don't think it's going to take much from a trade point of view. It's not going to be a huge imposition in terms of getting a deal done. He's out of contract. If at worst case, pre-season draft, I don't think anyone would want it to go that way, but they're really on the ladder.
Sam Flanders, what does he do? He's got another couple of years remaining on his contract, but the Saints are another club, as you mentioned last week, that are keen.
They're keen, and I think that first pick would be in play as well for them if they were able to land his commitment. I don't think anybody's met with Sam Flanders yet, so he's still got to weigh up what he does. He's obviously contracted. Gold Coast is in the window. Do you want to let go of a player who's going to help you over the next couple of years? But there's other clubs as well. Melbourne, Carlton, also pursuing. I wouldn't rule out an interest there from Geelong and Hawthorn as well, as they look in the midfield area. So a lot for him to decide, and he hasn't yet made up his mind if it's leave, and then if it is leave, which club it could be.
Last one, Jordan Ridley. He's been frustrated for much of the season. He's got that contract through till 2029. Expressed a desire to leave the football club at his exit interview last week. Some links to Queensland, Brisbane as well.
Brisbane came really hard in 2020. They were all over him at that point. He ended up deciding that was his breakout year, the big year of his career where he won the best and fairest. Injury clearly has been a factor in his thinking here, but he's got interest in going there. There's no doubt about that, and they've got interest in getting him. From a deal point of view, what can Brisbane offer to tilt Essendon's hand or to move them? At the moment, it's been steadfast that he's not going.
Would you be open to it if you were in charge of the Essendon Football Club?
That's a big if. That I've thought about often. Well, what would tempt you? I think you'd ask for Kai Lohmann, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Or Zach Bailey.
Well, Zach Bailey's a different story. But look, they had interest in Kai Lohmann previously. They were in the hunt for him a couple of years ago before he re-signed. Would you just transfer, if you got Lohmann on the hook or a player on the hook, would you just transfer the money that Ridley's on, which is high?
Yep.
He's one of the best paid players at Essendon, and they've tried to lure Lohmann home in the past. In the end, Essendon, in this case, does have the whip hand with a 4-year deal still remaining. But regardless, it's definitely made it clear that getting this fitness department right is a huge factor in what happens at Essendon in the future. Now,
Cal, Google Gemini is our personal AI assistant and a great help for sharing ideas and answering questions. We've unpacked a huge number of possible trades today, which will all be decided in a few weeks' time. Hi, Google Gemini. Remind me, when is the 2025 AFL trade period?
The 2025 AFL trade period is scheduled for October 6th to 15th. Are you interested in any particular teams or players?
I'm keen to see what Carlton does.
Carlton is a team that's always interesting to watch during the trade period. They've made some big moves in recent years. Are there any specific players you're hoping they'll go after?
I hope they'll go after Ollie Florent. What do you reckon?
Ollie Florent is a really talented player. He's got speed and can kick goals. Carlton could definitely use someone like that. Do you think they'd be willing to give up enough to get him?
Certainly hope so. Thanks, Google Gemini.
No worries. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Ollie Florent.
Yeah.
He wasn't on the wall.
He wasn't on the wall. I think he might be staying at the Swans as well.
Now, I reckon I probably owe the jar.
You owe more. We'll get the FPOS machine out after the show.
I promise that was it. I promise that was it until 2028. It's just staying here, though, as a reminder.
Great work from you, Cal. That was a massive episode. Nearly 40 players mentioned as part of Wharf Trades. We'll bring this back sometime soon, won't we?
Yes.
Until then, keep clicking back to afl.com.au and we'll see you next week on Gettable.